In this video, we'll be adding volume sliders to our options menu for our music and sound effects. We'll also be covering the importance of centralized audio via the audio bus system in Godot. In future videos, we'll be finishing off all of our options with the accessibility options, some stylizing, and signaling out our data to a centralized container so we can save and load our data. If you don't want to miss all of that and more, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications. As always, if you have any issues with the code, want a mechanic build, or just want to say hi, make sure to leave a comment. With all of that out of the way, let's move into our editor and set up our sound. Now we are here, one thing we haven't actually done yet in this project is set up any actual audio devices to play any sound or anything along those lines. So I've left open 3 tabs here for the places that I would like to play some audio. The first one being the main menu. We want to play some music on the main menu, just spice up the main menu a little. To do that, we're going to left click on the main menu to get it highlighted, get Control A to create a new node, and we are going to add a audio stream player. Now you'll see there are a bunch of these. You've got the audio stream player, the player 3D, and the player 2D. Now the player 2D and 3D are positional or spatial sound. They will play audio from a set position, i.e. if an explosion happens off in the distance, the audio will be played off in that distance at that area. Whereas the audio stream player will play it from, a non-positional place. It will just play it in general. You'll hear it from everywhere at the same or at the same volume. So that's what we want for our music. So I'm going to add this. I'm going to rename the audio stream player to the music stream player. And then on the right side here in the inspector, you can see this variable called stream. The stream is the sound that it's actually going to play. Now, if I go down into assets, and you'll see here that I've got 2 folders open, music and sound effects. The music is the one that we're going to be using. Now, I'm going to give you a word of warning. You can see that this is pretty much just a giant white bar. These are the sound waves. These are, or the waveform specifically, these are massively peaked and very, very loud. So I'm actually going to lower this down to around 13 to 14 decibels. Just so I don't blow out anybody's ears. Now I'm going to hit, go back to the music stream player, and I'm going to hit autoplay. This will autoplay the music. Now I want to make sure that this is looping. To do this, I can click on the actual audio stream, and where it says loop, I can click enable, and then hit re-import. This will now loop the music indefinitely. Make sure you have loopable music when you do this, otherwise it might sound a bit odd. So with this done, I'm going to make sure that this is actually set up by resetting this, clicking on the empty button, I'll hit quick load, import music, keep the decibel volume the same, make sure autoplay is on, and I'm going to hit F6. We want to play the scene. Now that is very loud, but that is kind of why we want to create this kind of options menu to allow us to change the volumes of things. Now you'll see here on the audio stream player there is this another variable at the very bottom called bus, and it's on the master bus. Now, a rookie move, and I'm saying rookie move because this is what I used to do, I used to have everything under the master bus. Now, you don't actually want that. Everything wants to go through the master bus, so you can control everything's audio all at once with the master bus. And what you actually want to add as well is a music bus and a sound effects bus. So we're going to do this now. We're going to click this add bus button. This new bus, we're going to use a capital M for music, so we're going to call it music. Then this bus, in the actual variable setting, we're going to change this to music. This way, anytime I control the volume through this music bus, it will change the volume of this audio stream player. And at the same time, if I change the volume in the master player, it'll change it in the music, which will then change it in the audio stream. Now the way that works is through this, where it says master, this is what this is actually going to play through. So we're going to do one more, and this is going to be for the sound effects, so capital S, FX. You can add as many of these as you want. You can add music, sound effects, ambient music, or ambient noise. You can add vocals or voice volume if you really want to. For now, we only need these 2. So with this done, I'm going to go into my jump handler, because I'm going to want a noise that plays when my character jumps. I'm going to use Control A to add. I'm going to add a audio stream player 2D. Now, the 2D in this sense doesn't mean much or make much of a difference in general, but just in case I want some positional sound, or I want to be able to hear other things that use this jump handler off screen as they move towards me. If they jump, I want to be able to hear it from a directional sense. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to set the audio bus down into the SFX bus. I'm going to quick load a new stream. This will be the jump stream. I'm going to hit Control S and save. I'm going to go into the script. We set this up in a previous video a little while back, but I'm going to show you how I will just very quickly kind of code this in to play only when we press jump. I'm going to create a new onReady variable for it, typecast it as the audio stream player 2D. There we go. And now this is my jump logic. This specific part is where I'm actually increasing the player's velocity, making it actually jump, and then switch into a different state. So this is where I actually want to play that audio stream. So I'm going to call my new onReady variable, which is the audio stream 2D, and I'm just going to write play. So this will get this playing now anytime I press the spacebar if I have jumps remaining. Hit Control S to save. Now I'm going to go into the collectible entity. This is for the coin. There is a reason why I wanted to show off collectible entities or coins in general, because coins do something specific when we pick them up, right? They destroy themselves or they delete themselves to show that they are picked up and they cannot be picked up again. Now, if we try to play a sound just before we cue free or delete the coin, the sound will either play very sharply and very quickly and then stop, or it just won't play at all. Now, we don't want that. Now, we could always just call the hide function and hide the coin, but then the coin, like instead of Q3, but then the coin will still be able to be picked up, it just won't be visible. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add an audio stream player to the collectible entity, not an audio listener. There we go. Now we're going to quick load in our sound for the coin pickup or pickup coin. I'm going to change the bus to the sound effects. I'm going to hit Control S to save. And in my ready function, I'm going to connect the audio stream player 2D's finished signal. So audio, I actually need to create an onReady variable for this as audio stream player 2D. There we go. Now I can go audio stream player 2D dot finished dot connect on underscore, we'll go on underscore SFX underscore finished. Copy that, go and create a new function for it. So when this is finished, what do we want to do? Well, when this is finished, we actually want to cue free the noise or cue free the coin itself. How do we actually play the sound from here? Well, first we are going to play the actual sound by using audio player play, so audio stream player 2D play. Then we are immediately going to hide the coin. So the minute this finishes, it will hide the coin, and then it will cue free, or it will hide the coin, play the thing, hide, and then cue free. That still doesn't solve the problem of how we're going to make sure we don't pick this up. That can actually be very simple. We're going to take our collision shape up here. We're going to create another onReady variable for it. We're going to call this, or type this as a collision shape, or collision object, collision shape 2D. Now we're going to need to do something kind of specific and something that I haven't actually shown off before. We are going to be using the set deferred functionality. So there are two functionalities like this, or well, there's quite a few, but the ones that usually get used are either call deferred or set deferred. Now, what do those do? Let's have a look. Let's call our collision shape 2D and then type dot set underscore deferred. Now, with this created, we can hold down Control and left click on the actual function and it'll tell you what it does. Assigns a value to given property at the end of the current frame. This is equivalent to calling set through call deferred. Now, why do we want to do this? Well, if we just set the thing that we want to set without using call deferred, i.e. in the same frame, it's going to try and do a bunch of things at once and it's going to error out and cause some problems. So to avoid that, we want to go set deferred, and then as a string value, because you need the you're going to need to type it in as a string, that's the first property that it takes, we're going to call the disabled, or we're going to be setting the disabled property. Now, what is the disabled property? Let's have a look. If we click on the collision shape, you can see here there is a property called disabled. disables the collision shape that has no effect in this world. This property should be changed with set deferred. So this will basically make it that so the area 2D that's using this collision shape will not actually be able to use the collision shape anymore. So we are going to set that as disabled and then type in true. So this will stop us from picking up the coin again. It's going to hide the coin, and then it's going to queue free after the sound is finished. We can go and actually test this out now. First, let's test the jump. We're jumping. Now, let's go and test the coin pickup. We have the same functionality as before with our coins, but now we're playing a sound. Perfect. With our sounds set up and them linked to their correct buses, we now need to go and create the slider functionality to actually give us more centralized control over all of our audio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close out the jump handler, the main menu, and the collectible. So we just have our settings tab container remaining. In the margin container of our sound tab, I'm going to use Control A, and I'm going to add the scroll container again. I always like using scroll containers in options menus, that way I can have as many as I want. Then I'm going to add a H-box. Now, not a H-box, a V-box. There we go. Now, V-boxes I will always give just a quick separation of 64 pixels. That's not always perfect, but it's always a decent start. With that done, we now need to design the sliders themselves so we can actually put them in our options menu. So we're going to create a new scene. We're going to have it set as a control type node, so user interface. Then we are going to call this audio underscore slider underscore settings. That not capital S will bother me. There we go. Now we're going to add a H-box to this. We want things to scroll from left to right. And then we're going to set up a theme override separation of 48 pixels, or 42 pixels, actually, would be better. There we go. Now, why 42? Well, with the sizing that I plan on using, 42 makes it kind of fit into the settings tab menu a little bit better. The sizing is entirely up to you. This is just what works best for me and kind of what I'm doing. So now we're going to add a label. I'm going to rename this label to audio underscore name. Always forget the O on the end of audio. There we go. Audio underscore name LBL for label. Now to the Hbox container, I'm also going to add a V separator. And then I'm going to duplicate this label, pull it underneath the audio or the separator. I'm going to duplicate the separator as well. Now I need to add something between these two separators. First, let's rename the audio name label to the audio num label. This is going to be the value for the numbers on the right side of the label. Now in our Hbox container, we are going to add a slider. Specifically, we're going to add a H slider. I'm going to slip that between the two separators that we've created. Now, under audio name, I'm just going to write master space volume. Audio number, I'll just set it at 99.2 or something. And now let's go and sort out our sizings real quick before we get into the code. So for the label, I'm going to want to have a theme override font size, so a font size of 32 pixels. And then I'm going to go down into the layout, and I'm going to set a custom minimum size in the X for 300 pixels. This just makes it so as long as the labels don't go above this size, it will line them up perfectly for us. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the final label. Set the font size, 32 pixels, then set the layout, custom minimum size to 300. Now we need to mess with our H slider and actually get this kind of working better. So for our H slider, we are going to want to set a max value of 1, a step of 0.001, And then we're going to go down into the layout and we're going to set a custom minimum size of 200 in the X and 32 in the Y. So things are a little bit centered. This is a little bit off center, which will bother me a little bit. So we can go into the layout, we can go into the container sizing, and we can change the fill. There we go. Makes that centered. Looks better. So with these done, I'm now going to hit Control S to save. I'm going to save this under the options menu because it's a part of my options menu. And we are going to now add the script to our root node, the audio slider settings. So I'm going to create this. Now we will not need a class name for this, so let's not worry about class names. We do, however, need some onReady variables. We're going to need one for the audio label, another one for the audio number label, and a final one for the H slider. So I'm going to typecast the two labels as a label, and then typecast the H slider as a H slider. Now, there are a few ways of kind of doing this. I've personally found that making it so you don't have to type nearly as much removes a lot of user-prone error, i.e. typos and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to export a enum, so export_enum, and you'll get these two parentheses. We'll ignore those for now. And after those parentheses, we're going to write var. We're going to call this the bus_name, and we're going to typecast this as a string. So this enum is exactly what the name entails. It's the name of the audio buses that we've set up. So we're going to want one for master, music, and sound effect, or SFX. So to do this, we're going to need to type them exactly how they are spelt in the as the audio buses. So the first one is master, the second one is music, and the third one is SFX. So that's our enum sorted. So what does this actually allow us to do? If we go back and click on our root node for the audio slider, you may have to click away and then click back to it. You'll see we got this new variable for bus name. We can now select a bus name for us without actually having to type anything in. That makes things a little bit easier. So let's talk about how we actually access these audio buses. Buses are indexed. What does that mean? Well, let's look at these three buses. We've got 0, 1, and 2. That's the index for our buses. Now, if you had like 12 buses, it would go from 0 to 11. 0 to 11? Yeah, 0 to 11. In that kind of indexy manner. Now, we're actually going to want a variable for this. So let's create a variable. We'll call it bus_index. We're going to set it to an int, and we're going to make that set to 0. Now, we're going to typecast this as an int specifically because the index is a full number, so it's an integer. And we're going to set this immediately to 0. So we always at least have the master selected. There is no unselected index there. It's just always the master. Now, we're going to create our ready function, so func_ready. We are going to connect the slider value changed signal. So if I actually go and click on my H slider here, go into node, signals, you'll see that there is a value changed, and a value, it takes a value and float as parameters, but that's the signal we want to do. So we're going to go H slider dot value changed dot connect, and we're going to connect this to the on_value_changed function that we are now going to go set up. Remember, it takes a parameter for a value, which is a float. Give it a void return type. Now, what do we actually want to do inside of this value changed? For now, we are going to want to do nothing, because we are going to need to create a few functions to actually get this usable. So the very first thing that we're going to want to set up is just a way of changing the name of our current labels, right? So we're going to go func set_name_label_text. This one's going to be for the name labels text specifically. We're going to go label.text, and we're going to set that equal to str, so string conversion, and we're going to set that equal to the bus name. Then we're going to use the plus, open some double quotes here. we're going to put a space first to give ourselves a little bit of a space between our words. And then we're going to type volume. Now, if you want to go a little bit extra, you can put a space after this and then add a percentage. But we won't do that for this specific label. We might do that for the next one. It might make a bit more sense in the next one. So that's going to set the label correctly. Now, issue is I renamed the label. So audio name label is one I actually want to change. So that's the name label sorted. Now let's go and set our audio number label. So set _audio _num _label _text. Once again, I'm always very verbose with the functions that I create. Makes them a lot easier to understand when I come back to them in a month's time and get very confused about what I'm doing. So for this, we're going to go audio num label dot text. We're going to set this equal to, once again, string conversion, so str. And then we're going to want to grab our h sliders dot value. There is a bit of an issue with this. If we just use the value of our h slider, it's only going to be between 0 and 1. We don't actually want that. We're going to want to kind of show it off as a percentage. So the easiest way of doing that is timesing it by 100. So now with our labels set up, we're going to need to call them inside of our ready function. So we're going to call set _ name label text. This is going to set the name label of our audio slider immediately. We can go and see that in action now. So the bus name is master. If I hit F6, you can see master volume. If I change this to music, hit F6, and we'll see music volume. Okay, that's automating the naming for us. That's perfect. Now, we actually want to start linking these up and making sure the audio gets played. You're probably wondering, where is the name label, or not the name label, the number label actually being used? Well, we'll sort that out in a second. So for this, what we're going to want to do is create a new function. This one will be for grabbing the indexed name, or grabbing the actual index by name for our audio buses. So we're going to write func get _bus by, or get bus name _by _index. And then we're going to return this as a void. Now all we've got to do is write bus _index dot, equals, now we want to access the audio server. The audio server is the server that's in control of the audio buses. It's where all of those things get contained. So the audio server dot get _bus index. So we want to get the bus index, and then we want to provide it a string name. Well, in this case, we can literally just provide it with the bus _name. So whatever enum was set to is what this will get set to, and then it will provide us an indexed number from 0 to however many you've got, and that will set our bus index correctly. So with our bus index being set, we now need to modify the on value changed. So how do we set the on value changed? Well, this one's going to be kind of simple, kind of complex. We're going to access the audio server, and then we're going to write dot set _bus. If we scroll down, volume dB, we're going to want to pass in the bus index that we've just grabbed, and then we're going to want to type in a really specific function. This is called linear to dB. Then we're going to want to pass in the value on the value parameter that we've got in here. So what does linear to dB do? The definition or the description of this is it changes linear energy to decibels. I can click on this and you'll see. Convert from linear energy to decibels. This can be used to implement volume sliders that behave as expected. There is math behind this that is complex, and I do not understand it. I will not try to explain it to you. I don't want to confuse you anymore. For now, that's as good as we're going to have to get for a description on that. But that will basically change our linear slider number to a decibel volume, allowing us to change our volume a lot more accurately and kind of better. So with that done, we now need to call set _audio num label text, so we can update the numbered text next to our slider. Now, there is one thing we haven't created yet. If we actually go and try and do this, we're not actually setting the slider value at all, like whatever our value actually is. So we are going to go and create a new function. It's going to call set underscore slider underscore value. Give it a void return type. Now we want to access our H slider. We want to write dot value. And then we want to set that equal to dB to linear. We'll grab the audio server. Then we'll use dot get underscore bus underscore volume dB. And then we are going to pass in the bus index. And then once again, just after this, we're going to want to call set audio number label text. So we've got all of our functions set, and yet the only thing we're actually calling right now is, or at least in our ready function, is the set name label. The set audio number label is getting called in two separate places. One of them is a signal, which is on this value changed one. So let's go and set these up correctly. The first thing we're going to want to call is get underscore bus name by index. That way we're getting our bus name. And then we'll set the name of the label text. And then finally, we're going to set the slider value. So if I hit Control S to save, I hit F6, music volume, and you'll see we've got the numbers on the right side actually matching what we want to match correctly. And the slider is sliding and doing things. Perfect. We've got 0, 42, 50, 100, done. So that's that set up. Now you can add some extra numbers to this. As I said, you can add a percentage sign. If you wanted to add a percentage sign to the audio number label, you would just type plus and then open your double quotes and then place in a percentage sign, hit Control S to save, run the scene. There you go, 100%, 60%, 42%, 23%, 0%. If that's the style that you want to go for, feel free. This is what I'm probably going to leave it as for now. Now I'm going to hit Control S and save. So we've got our sliders set up. They're matching the actual bus values correctly, and we are able to change them. Now let's go back into our settings container tab. Let's use Control-Shift-A to add the audio slider tab a couple of times, specifically 3 times. We need to add this 3 times just to make sure that make sure that we have the coverage that we need for the audio sources we want to. Now the first one is going to be set to master volume. The second one I'm going to set to music volume. And the third one I'm going to set to SFX volume. I'm going to hit Control Save. I'm going to, I think if you change the tab, oh no, it won't update, fair enough. Now if I hit F6 and play this scene and go into the sound, we're now getting our volume set correctly. But as you've noticed, no sound is playing. So we're going to run this from the main menu to get the actual sound playing correctly. And there you go, as you can see, the master volume is working. And as is our music volume. Now, I will not be able to show off the SFX volume, but you can trust me, it's working. We know that the SFX is working, so I'm going to mute the music by setting it down to 0%, put the master volume up to 100, and put the SFX down to 4.3%. I'm going to go into start, and you can see that this is a little bit quieter than what it used to be. But it's all functioning correctly. That is how we set up audio sliders for our options menu. Now, one thing that I will mention about all of this, and this video is kind of blown through quite quickly, the way that I'm setting up audio currently is if I go into one of my other scenes, so go into the main menu because it's easier, I'm just adding these stream players. And then I'm putting a thing in there and I'm clicking autoplay, adjusting the volume if I need to immediately. This is not how I would usually set up sound. This is just a very kind of quick and dirty way of just throwing things together to make sure that we have a way of actually linking them together. This is fine for prototyping. In a future video, I will actually go through creating an entire sound system with you so you can design something a bit more customizable and modifiable that will make a little bit more sense and just kind of look a lot better. Anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.